My fellow citizens, today we celebrate the mystery of American renewal. This ceremony is held in the depth of winter, but by the words we speak and the faces we show the world, we force the spring. A spring reborn in the world's oldest democracy that brings forth the vision and courage to reinvent America.
Bill Clinton was a Democrat and the 42nd president elected. He served 2 terms from 1993 to 2001, and his vice president was Al Gore. Under his presidency, the country had its longest period of peacetime economic expansion, which lasted around 10 consecutive years of job growth and deficit decrease. His administration began with a shaky start, as he took office towards the end of a recession. Clinton limited government spending and also cut the budget in an attempt to reduce the nation's $60 billion deficit. He kept interest rates low to encourage private investment and also eliminated protectionist tariffs. Clinton also allocated more money towards education in an attempt to improve employment opportunities. He was a strong supporter for gay rights, women's rights, and also the minority populations. His aim was to move his party away from the traditional anti-business, anti-crime, strong defense, and pro-growth policies. He supported the ratification of NAFTA, which was a treaty that eliminated tariffs and trade restrictions among the US, Canada, and Mexico. During his presidency, there was a strong anti-government mood, which resulted in the rise of multiple radical fringe groups. In 1998, a sex scandal had emerged as Clinton was found to be having an affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. He was impeached by the House of Reps, but not removed, as he was later acquitted by the Senate in 1999. He was charged with perjury after he had denied any allegations of the affair. In 1998, a CNN poll said that 63% thought he was an effective president, but only 33% approved of his character. There were multiple polls that had indicated that people approved of his presidency, but not necessarily of Clinton himself.
I want to say again to the American people how profoundly sorry I am for what I said and did to trigger these events and the great burden they have imposed on the Congress and on the American people.
Bill Clinton came into office only a few short years after the conclusion of the Cold War to a nation that still did not have a firm post-Cold War foreign policy. For the decades during the Cold War, the United States foreign policy had been simply anti-communism, but now that had to be shifted into something new. Uncertain about the new era of foreign policy the country was headed into, Clinton resorted to following the actions of his predecessors and sent American troops on a peacekeeping mission to Somalia. Unfortunately, a group of Somalian rebels killed more than a dozen servicemen. This caused Clinton to be timid about sending more troops on peacekeeping missions, which resulted in the U.S. not sending aid during the Rwandan genocide, where hundreds of thousands of people died. Only in 1995 would Clinton overcome his reluctance and send troops on a NATO peacekeeping mission. This mission launched airstrikes against Serbians who were committing genocide against the ethnic Albanese in Kosovo. The mission ended in success with the Serbian leader in custody and NATO occupation of Kosovo. Clinton helped broker a deal between the Israeli leader and the Palestinian Liberation Organization leader in an attempt to stabilize the Middle East, which was a major foreign policy concern for Clinton. The agreement was the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and self-rule for the Palestinians. But when the Israeli Prime Minister was assassinated, the peace deal was also killed. Al-Qaeda was growing in the Middle East and declared war against the U.S. In acts to protest American presence in the Middle East, they bombed U.S. embassies in Kenya, Tanzania, and bombed the U.S. destroyer USS Cole, in which Clinton responded with military action. Clinton's foreign policy was not limited to the Middle East. He saw victories in religious conflicts in Northern Ireland and denuclearization victories in India, Pakistan, and Korea.
The 1990s and the elected period of Bill Clinton marked some very revolutionary advancements in technology and society. Near the beginning of Clinton's first term in 1993, the Mosaic web browser was created. The Mosaic web browser revolutionized the standard web browser, as it could display images and graphics with improved search speeds and results. It took the American internet by storm and became the most widely popular graphical web browser for many, many years. In 1998, during Clinton's second term, Google was founded, which introduced the best web algorithm for searching the most relevant search results, which quickly surfaced over the Mosaic as the best web browser. Arguably one of the single most important events to technology was Steve Jobs' return. Prior to this, the company Apple was on the verge of collapse in 1996, with a financial crisis on their hands. Shareholders, along with customers, were very worried as well, as competing companies were advancing quicker than Apple was. When Steve Jobs came back, he was accredited with shifting Apple to the mobile device market, which surged the company and revolutionized phones, iPods, and many devices today. Jeff Bezos launched his company, Amazon, in 1994, which began with selling books online. He helped shed light on online shopping, and in the future, his company would become one of the largest corporations responsible for online deliveries and shopping. Bill Clinton's second term featured some of the most advanced technological advancements we'd seen in a while. The addition of the camera to the phone heavily advanced the functionality of phones, which increased phone sales drastically. The introduction of Bluetooth technology allowed wireless connections across devices and earpieces, which set the stage for some of the most advanced devices in the coming decade. A rise in gaming consoles like the PlayStation 1 and the Game Boy Color introduced a newer and more appreciated form of leisure in America. Overall, the technology during Bill Clinton's period focused on modernizing our society, and it clearly did.
Clinton's presidency included a great time of economic growth in American history. The Clintonomics, as it was known, encompassed a huge set of economic policies as well as a governmental philosophy. His approach entailed modernization of the federal government and trying to reduce the amount of work it did. It made it more enterprise-friendly while also giving greater authority to the states and local governments. Clinton assumed office following the end of a recession, which definitely helped with his economic standing. The Clintonomics policy mainly focused on four main points: establishing fiscal discipline and eliminating the budget deficit, maintaining low interest rates and encouraging private sector investment, eliminating protectionist tariffs, and investing in human capital through education and research. Prior to his 1992 presidential campaign, America had undergone 12 years of conservative policies implemented by Ronald Reagan and George Bush. Clinton's platform ran on balancing the budget, lowering inflation, lowering unemployment, and continuing the traditionally conservative policies of free trade. President Clinton oversaw a very successful economy during his tenure. The U.S. had huge economic growth, around 4% annually, and record job creation at around 23 million. He raised taxes on higher income taxpayers early in his first term and cut defense spending and welfare, which contributed to the rise in revenue and decline in spending relative to the size of the economy. These factors helped bring the United States federal budget into surplus from the fiscal year 1998 to 2001, the only surplus years after 1969. Debt held by the public, a primary measure of the national debt, fell relative to GDP throughout his first two terms, from 47.8% in 1993 all the way down to 31.4% in 2001. In proposing his plan to cut the government deficit, Clinton submitted a budget and corresponding tax legislation that would somehow cut the deficit by $500 billion over 5 years by reducing $255 billion of spending and raising taxes on the wealthiest 1.2% of Americans. This also imposed a new energy tax on all Americans and subjected about a quarter of those receiving Social Security payments to higher taxes on their benefits.
After Bill Clinton left the White House, he later moved to New York with Hillary Clinton. One of his main goals in New York was overseeing his creation of his presidential library in Little Rock, Arkansas, which was one of his devotions. He was one of the youngest men to leave office, and he did, however, receive lots of criticism on his Clinton Presidential Foundation, which focused on combating HIV and AIDS and ethnic and racial conciliation and fostering care for that. And it promoted economic empowerment of poor people, but it was receiving lots of lashback. He also was one of the most astute political analysts within the time, especially in his party, and he was heavily involved in Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign later on in 2016.